I still can't believe it happened, and honestly, I'm still trying to process everything that unfolded. I mean, can you imagine not being invited to your own sister's wedding, and then, to top it all off, seeing footage of the groom, her asterisk fiancé asterisk, slapping her at the reception go completely viral? It's a nightmare I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, and yet here I am living it. Was I wrong for the way I reacted? Tell me if you would have done the same thing. Let's rewind a bit, back to how everything started. My sister, Clara, and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's 2 years older than me, and ever since we were kids, there's been this underlying tension, a subtle competition fueled mostly by our mother. Mom always favored Clara, doted on her accomplishments, and subtly, or not so subtly, put me down in comparison. Clara was the pretty one, the smart one, the popular one. I was just me. I learned early on to carve out my own space, to find my own identity separate from her shadow. This created a distance between us that, even as adults, we never really managed to bridge. We were civil, polite even, but never close. We rarely confided in each other, and our conversations were usually superficial, revolving around family updates or mundane everyday things. There was no deep sisterly bond, no late night talks, no shared secrets. It was always just us existing in the same family orbit. When Clara met Mark, I had a bad feeling from the start. He was a smooth talker, charming in a way that felt almost practiced, and he had an intensity in his eyes that I couldn't quite place, but it made me uneasy. He was significantly older than Clara, by about 10 years, and he came from a very wealthy family, which, to my mother, was like hitting the jackpot. Mom adored him from the moment she met him, praising his ambition, his success, and, of course, his financial standing. Clara, swept up in the whirlwind romance, seemed equally smitten. They got engaged within 6 months of dating, a timeline that struck me as incredibly fast, but everyone else in the family seemed thrilled. I tried to voice my concerns to Clara once, very gently, just asking if she felt she truly knew him, if she was sure this was what she wanted. Her reaction was immediate and defensive. She accused me of being jealous, of trying to ruin her happiness, just like I always did. That shut me down effectively. I decided then and there that I would keep my opinions to myself, for her sake and for the sake of what little peace we had. The wedding planning began almost immediately, and it was a lavish affair. My mother, practically bursting with pride, took charge of a lot of the details, reveling in the opportunity to plan such a grand event. I, of course, assumed I would be a bridesmaid, or at the very least involved in some capacity. After all, she was my sister. We weren't close, but we were family. Imagine my shock, then, when a month before the wedding I still hadn't received any kind of invitation, any role, or even a casual mention of my participation. I waited, thinking maybe it was an oversight, or perhaps she was waiting for the perfect moment to ask me. Days turned into weeks, and then I started seeing posts on social media from my cousins, aunts, and even some of Clara's friends, excitedly showing off their invitations, talking about their dresses, and congratulating Clara. It hit me then. I hadn't been invited. The realization was a punch to the gut. It wasn't just that I wasn't invited. It was the deliberate exclusion, the silence, the feeling of being completely erased from such a significant family event. I felt a surge of hurt, confusion, and a familiar sense of being less than. I called Clara, my voice tight with emotion, and asked her directly. Her response was chillingly cold. I decided to keep the guest list small, only people who truly support me and my relationship with Mark, she said, her tone devoid of any warmth. And frankly, I don't think you approve of Mark, so why would I want you there? I was speechless. The phone call ended with me hanging up, tears streaming down my face. My mother, when I confronted her about it, simply shrugged and said, "Clara makes her own choices. If she doesn't want you there, that's her decision." It was clear no one was on my side. I was completely alienated. The wedding day came and went. I spent it alone, feeling a deep ache of loneliness and betrayal. I tried to distract myself, to tell myself it didn't matter, but it did. It hurt profoundly. I saw the pictures and videos flood social media, a glamorous fairy tale wedding that I was deliberately excluded from. Clara looked stunning, radiant, and Mark, of course, was all smiles, playing the part of the perfect groom. I tried to push it all out of my mind to move on. Then came the next day, a Monday. I was at work, trying to focus, when my phone started buzzing relentlessly. Texts, calls, notifications popping up like crazy. My cousin Sarah called me, her voice breathless and frantic. "Have you seen it, the video? It's everywhere," she practically screamed. Confused, I went to my social media, and there it was. A video seemingly filmed by a guest at the wedding reception was trending, getting millions of views, shares, and comments. It was labeled, "Groom slaps bride at wedding reception." My heart leaped into my throat. I clicked on it, my hands trembling. The footage was grainy, taken from a distance, but clear enough. It showed Clara and Mark on the dance floor, surrounded by guests. They seemed to be in the middle of a heated argument, though no sound was audible above the music. Clara was gesticulating, her face visibly distressed. Mark at first seemed to be trying to calm her down, but then, in a sudden, shocking movement, he raised his hand and slapped her across the face. The impact was clear. Clara stumbled back, clutching her cheek, her eyes wide with shock and pain. The music paused abruptly, and a stunned silence fell over the room as guests reacted in horror. Mark then grabbed her arm, pulled her close, and seemed to be whispering something aggressively in her ear before dragging her off the dance floor, away from the shocked crowd. The video ended there. My blood ran cold. I felt a wave of nausea, followed by an intense surge of anger. This was it. This was the Mark I had sensed, the one I had tried to warn her about. My sister, my own flesh and blood, had been slapped by her husband at her own wedding in front of everyone. And I wasn't there. I wasn't there to defend her, to protect her, to even just be a witness. The feeling of helplessness was overwhelming. The comments section was a mix of outrage, pity for Clara, and condemnation for Mark. People were calling him abusive, a monster, and questioning why no one intervened more forcefully. Some were even questioning Clara's judgment. It was a complete public spectacle, a humiliation for my sister that was now immortalized online. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Here was my sister, the one who had excluded me, publicly humiliated and hurt. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have reached out? Would you have condemned her husband publicly? Or would you have stayed silent, given her past treatment of you? I couldn't just stand by. Despite everything, despite the years of resentment and the pain of being uninvited, she was still my sister. My initial anger towards her exclusion was overshadowed by a primal urge to protect her, to ensure she was safe. I called her immediately. My mother answered her phone, her voice tight and defensive. "She's not taking calls right now," Mom said curtly. "She's resting after that. Mom, what happened?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "Is she okay? What about Mark?" Mom hemmed and hawed, trying to downplay the situation, saying it was just a misunderstanding, an overreaction. I knew instantly she was trying to protect Mark, probably because of his wealth, or perhaps out of some misguided sense of loyalty. I pushed harder, insisting on speaking to Clara. Finally, Mom relented, probably to get me off her back. When Clara answered, her voice was weak, barely a whisper. She sounded utterly broken. "Clara." I started, my voice softening despite my anger. I saw the video. "Are you okay? Where are you? Are you safe?" There was a long silence, and then I heard her begin to sob, deep, gut-wrenching sobs. It broke my heart. All the past hurts, all the resentment, faded away in that moment. She told me she was at Mark's family estate, that he had apologized profusely, blaming it on alcohol and stress, and that her mother was trying to convince her it was a one-off incident, that she should forgive him, but Clara knew. She knew, even if she didn't want to admit it aloud, that this was just the beginning. The way he had looked at her, the sheer force of the slap, the public nature of it all, It was terrifying. I told her unequivocally that she needed to leave him, that this was not okay, that no apology could erase what he had done, and that it would only get worse. I offered to come get her, to pick her up immediately, to bring her back to my place, no questions asked. She hesitated, torn between the pressure from her mother and the sudden, unexpected lifeline I was offering. "I can't just leave," she whispered, my mom. "She says it's a scandal. She says I'll ruin everything." That's when I knew I had to act. I didn't care about scandal or ruining everything. My sister's safety was paramount. I drove straight to Mark's family estate without telling anyone, not even my mother. I walked right up to the imposing gates, heart pounding, and somehow managed to talk my way in, insisting I needed to see my sister. I found Clara in one of the guest rooms, looking utterly defeated. She had a bruise blooming on her cheek, a stark testament to what had happened. Mark was nowhere in sight, probably off somewhere being remorseful or strategizing with his family. My mother was there, along with Mark's parents, all of them trying to reason with Clara, to minimize the incident, to talk her out of leaving. I walked in, my presence a complete shock to everyone. "Clara, you're coming with me," I said, my voice firm and unwavering, ignoring everyone else in the room. My mother immediately started protesting. "What are you doing here? You're not helping." Mark's parents looked furious, demanding to know who I was. I didn't engage. I just looked at Clara, my eyes conveying all the unspoken messages of support and love I had been unable to give her for years. Clara looked at me, then at her mother, then at Mark's parents, and finally a flicker of defiance, of self-preservation, ignited in her eyes. She stood up. "I'm leaving," she said, her voice still quiet, but stronger this time. "I'm leaving with my sister." My mother gasped, and Mark's parents started a barrage of threats about legal action, about tarnishing their family name. I grabbed Clara's hand, pulled her out of that room, and we walked out of that house, leaving them all sputtering in our wake. We didn't say a word to each other until we were safely in my car, driving away. The aftermath was messy, to say the least. Clara stayed with me for weeks. Slowly, painfully, she began to heal. The video, meanwhile, continued to explode online. News outlets picked it up, and it became a full-blown sensation. Mark was publicly shamed, his reputation irrevocably damaged. His family tried to sue the person who filmed it, tried to have the video taken down, but it was too late. The internet had spoken. My mother, initially furious with me for disrupting Clara's marriage and causing a scandal, eventually saw the light when the full extent of Mark's controlling and potentially abusive behavior came out. She apologized to me, genuinely, for the first time in my life, for not listening, for not protecting Clara. It was a small victory, but a significant one. Clara filed for an annulment, and with the viral video as undeniable proof of his abuse, Mark and his family had no choice but to agree to a quiet settlement. She lost a lot, yes, the lavish wedding, the promise of a wealthy future. But she gained her freedom, her dignity, and finally a real relationship with her sister. Our relationship, after years of neglect and resentment, was finally being rebuilt, brick by painful brick. We talked, we cried, we shared. It was like we were finally getting to know each other for the first time, stripped of all the old baggage and expectations. The public humiliation, while devastating, forced a reckoning that might never have happened otherwise. This whole experience taught me so much. It taught me that family, despite its complexities and heartaches, is ultimately worth fighting for. It taught me that sometimes the hardest choices are the right ones, and that standing up for someone, even when they've hurt you, is a measure of true character. Clara is still healing, but she's stronger now, more resilient, and we, her and I, are closer than we've ever been. We went through hell, but we came out the other side together. So that's my story, a twisted tale of a wedding I wasn't invited to, and a viral video that changed everything. If you were on my side, if you understand why I did what I did, please like this video. Subscribe for more stories like this, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I'll see you all in the next story.